Leaving the military was really the precipice of me figuring out who I was and me beginning my spiritual journey. After the military, I had gone to college and I was in this kind of like party girl phase because I had to grow up very fast in the military, considering the position that I was in. And now I had this freedom. So that freedom led to, me drinking, hanging out with friends, going out. And one day, and I don't remember when, but I had seen that a woman who would always do yoga, I had admired her so much. She posted a video with Londrell, like of a Londrell song. And something about that song, I wish I remembered which one it was, but something about that song just like really stuck out to me. And I'm like, ooh, I need to search up this artist. So I searched up Londrell, and that was the beginning of me going down I'm only listening to Londrell rabbit hole. And I kid you not, for like months, all I listened to was Londrell. And at the time, my friends, they were friends from high school, they didn't understand his kind of music, right? Because it's a different level of consciousness. And they were like, turn that off. Like, we don't want to hear that. But it was like he was speaking to me, and listening to his music was awakening something in me. Like, I started thinking differently. I started just becoming more aware of this life and becoming more aware of me as a sacred woman and as a sacred being and a sacred spirit. I think once you get past judgment is when you step into a whole nother realm of who you truly are and allowing the divine to work through you. Because where God exists, judgment cannot. It's just a reality. And I think when we're focused on judgment, then we stop ourselves from allowing the divine to really flow through us, to really be used as a vessel for the divine. Music is a beautiful way to just surrender to the flow. I definitely see myself connecting with music in the future. I am part of, which kind of goes back a little bit full circle to just my journey, but being part of an Indigenous community, Taino Woods. I joined the Tequinas, which is a drum circle. We're the song keepers of medicine songs. So we sing traditional Taino songs in the Arawakan language, as well as Spanish and in English, but they're songs of prayer. And through joining this drum circle is where I started finding my voice. And it became easier for me to share my expression, for me to share my poetry, and for me to sing. So I feel like naturally, I find that all poets, well, most poets, like Londrell, for instance, and yourself, they start with poetry and then they evolve to start creating music out of their poetry. Because that's what, to me, that's what music is. Music is poetry with sound.
What's up, Dharma Glow family? Here with the new friend Janiris. I met her through Jar, who connected with her at the Glow Up back when I was out in San Diego. And it's funny because she was there, but we didn't actually connect until I saw her on Instagram, probably like a month ago. And I started following her and experiencing her very clear, very grounded and calm transmissions. And I was like, yo, she's in the energy. She's in the flow, for real. And I invited her to come join us today and share. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be able to share my story, my testimony. I hope it inspires someone. And we shall see what comes out, because I'm sure this is a space that's going to benefit whoever watches it.
For sure, 100%. I have no doubts. Whoever's meant to be uplifted by it will be.
Yes.
Okay, so, I hardly know anything about you, which I actually really enjoy, because it's like sometimes I like going to see a movie and not seeing the trailer, I'm just like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
So what I always invite people to do is to share their life story, saying, I was born here at this time in this circumstance, and then this was my journey up until now.
Okay. So, like you mentioned, my name is Janiris Corretger. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I lived in Brooklyn till I was 5. And I had moved to New Haven, Connecticut, which is where I spent most of my life. I went to middle school, high school in Connecticut, and I grew up as the baby of 4 children to a single mother. And I grew up in the hood. I was not fed like a silver spoon or anything. So I grew up seeing a lot of violence, a lot of just being in a space where a lot of healing needed to be done. I would say I grew up in an area where there was a lot of fear and a lot of people that just had pain that they needed to heal from and didn't know how. So there was this deep desire in me to escape all of this. I wanted more for myself. I wanted to experience a different life. And growing up, I always felt like I was meant for more. So that translated into me just being involved in like so much as a kid. Like in high school, I was a cheerleader and in JROTC and a police explorer and part of a public safety academy. Like I just kept myself very busy. And ultimately, my connection to being in JROTC, which for those who don't know what that is, it's a junior army program within the high schools. And I was also a police explorer for New Haven, which is like a junior police program. So my escape from the environment that I was living in led to me joining the military. And I decided to join the army. I was a military police officer for 5 years. I served in Korea for 2 years, where I also was a military police investigator. And then I was stationed in Germany for 3 years, where I served as a physical security assistant. So my background is all very like criminally focused, like criminal justice focused. I think growing up in poverty, naturally, I wanted to serve in some way. And the mind of a young child, there was a part of me that was like, oh yeah, police officer, like I'm gonna be so like valuable to the community. And that's just the path that I went down. But in hindsight, I realized that I just wanted to serve my community and serve the people who needed my help. So after leaving the military, I left because I had 2 injuries. So I was medically retired out. And I was medically retired out of the service. And I got out in 2020, which is like when the pandemic started. So not only was I transitioning in life, but the world just turned so weird. Like I don't know what was going on. So I finally went back home to Connecticut after 5 years of being overseas. And I would have thought I would have been like so excited, like I'm free, I'm no longer in the service. But I was, a part of me was devastated because I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I do now? Like, I left the service and I felt so purposeless. Like, I no longer had anyone telling me what to do, what to wear, where to go. I no longer had that very militant structure that I was so used to. For people who have served in the military, when you're used to that kind of environment and that kind of culture, being socialized back into regular society feels so weird because you feel like no one truly understands you. Not only that, because I had joined during such a vulnerable time in my life after high school, I felt like I was completely stripped of my identity as a woman. So when I got out of the service, I really didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do. And I was so disconnected from creativity because it's not something that's fostered in a militant culture. Leaving the military was really like the precipice of me figuring out who I was and me beginning my spiritual journey. And there was like, I had, after the military, I had gone to college and I was in this kind of like party girl phase. I don't know if it has it been 3 minutes. I don't know. But
You're
I was
good.
in this like party girl phase because I had to grow up very fast in the military, considering the position that I was in. And now I had this freedom. So that freedom led to, me drinking, hanging out with friends, going out. And one day, and I don't remember when, but I had seen that a woman who would always do yoga, like I had admired her so much. She posted a video with Londrell, like of a Londrell song. And something about that song, I wish I remembered which one it was, but something about that song just like really stuck out to me. And I'm like, ooh, I need to search up this artist. So I searched up Londrell, and that was the beginning of me going down Like I'm only listening to Lingerie Rabbit Hole. And I kid you not, for like months, all I listened to was Lingerie. And at the time, my friends, they were friends from high school. They didn't understand his kind of music, right? Because it's a different level of consciousness. And they were like, turn that off. Like, we don't want to hear that. But it was like he was speaking to me, and listening to his music was awakening something in me. Like I started thinking differently. I started just becoming more aware of this life and becoming more aware of me as a sacred woman and as a sacred being and a sacred spirit. So it was just like Landrell had become my introduction to my spiritual journey because of the shift in mindset that his music introduced me to. So I had become a huge fan of his, right? Because I admired his art and his words for what it was doing for me. And I had finally seen that he was going to perform in California. And I'm like, oh, what? No way. Like, one of my favorite artists is going to be here. And I literally saw that like the same week that it was going to happen. And I'm like, oh man, he's going to be in California. Like, I'm in Connecticut. I got to go, which was the event was Dharma Glow. Uh-huh. I think I bought my ticket like 3 days before. It was like super spontaneous. I stayed at my aunt's house in Santa Ana. I rented a car, drove down to San Diego, and I showed up to Dharma Glow to go see Landrell. So I was like, I didn't know anyone there. I was like completely alone. It was the first time I had gone to like a spiritual event. And it was the first time I was introduced to so many different workshops. I remember there was a workshop where a woman was facilitating like a, I don't know, like this animalistic kind of movement, a primal movement kind of workshop. There was
Yes,
like the,
sutra.
yes.
Yes.
So it was the first time I had experienced any of this in like one day. So yeah, that was so there at Dharma Glow is where I met Jason from Jara. And I remember he had randomly came up to me and he just mentioned that I should get henna done on my face. So I'm like, okay. So we had ended up connecting there at that event, and we just stayed connected on Instagram, and I would always see his art and I was so inspired by him because I thought he was an amazing artist. So months had passed by, and I want to say the fall of 2020, there was something deeply in me that wanted to connect to my roots. Like, I don't know what it was, but something came up and I'm like, I want to connect to my roots. So I went to the Puerto Rican Day Parade in Hartford, Connecticut. And when I got there, I'm like, this isn't it. Like, something about it just wasn't it. And I just remember thinking in my head, like, I want to connect to my ancestral roots. Like, it was just like a simple thought. And I want to say a month later, all of a sudden, I saw that Jason had posted that he is hosting a retreat. So I'm like, oh, this is in New York. Like, let me go to that. I hop on the like introductory call, and that's when I learned that it was at a place called Taino Woods. And Taino Woods, Taino are my ancestral roots.
Wow.
As a yeah, for those who don't know, Tainos are the indigenous people of the Caribbeans. So I remember just saying that within the introduction, like I've been wanting to connect to my roots, and this is called Taino Woods. Like, this is perfect. So I went to the retreat and I felt amazing. I felt like I left feeling so charged and feeling like so creative. And it was after the retreat that I posted my very, very first video ever. And within that video, I just shared how, you know, when you're filled with so much love for yourself, like you just naturally want that love to pour out and you want to give that love to everyone else. And it was the first time I went outside of my regular content because I was more like more modeling, more like glam kind of post, like never anything uplifting, never anything of what I'm doing now. So yeah, just I guess that journey of like going into the military, finding my identity, beginning my spiritual journey, and then it leading me to my roots is how I started realizing my purpose, which was to connect back to ancestral wisdom and to also to uplift and empower others through my journey of taking myself out of, oh man, I should have, hold on, I'm gonna have to go back to something right quick because this is big.
All right, let's run it back.
Not like, okay, all right, after, okay, my bad. Just so much has happened, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
The journey is real.
the journey be journeying. You know what I mean?
I do.
Lord. Okay. So after the retreat, I connected to Taino woods, and that was the first time that I started learning about my Taino roots.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I began the path of walking the red road, which is walking the path of the indigenous, like really being connected and rooted to your to the indigenous spirituality. So shortly after that, after feeling so creative and like and artistic and coming out with my expression, creating poetry, painting, all things that I really attribute to the energy that I felt from the retreat. After that, I soon fell into a deep depression because as creativity and all these beautiful things rose up, so did really deeply and rooted traumas.
Mm.
And I was faced with having to sit with childhood sexual trauma that I wasn't consciously aware of until I began healing my body and really tapping into my creativity. It was like I was finally in a place where my inner child felt safe enough to heal and to make me aware of things that I wasn't aware of at the time. So that led me into a very deep depression where I completely lost myself. I had lost 20 pounds and I went very deep into a hole. And I spent like months off of social media because I just didn't have the energy to even take care of myself. So little by little, I started regaining my strength and I started learning how to care for myself, which led me down to understanding how to really heal myself, how to give myself the nourishment and the nutrients that I needed. And it led me down the path of health and wellness. So that gave birth to not only sharing inspiring and uplifting messages, because I began to share what I needed to hear during that dark time in my life, but also how to really nourish your body and your spirit back to health as well. So I began to essentially document my journey of what I like to call the natural girl glow up. So I have a page called Gloating Goddess, which is dedicated to just empowering women and teaching them how to love themselves through self-care in a holistic lens. So I also create herbal blends, herbal teas that support the spiritual journey as well as the journey to better health. And now
Wow.
I'm here.
That's so powerful. I honor your journey and the level of health and vitality and presence that you rest in.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much in that. So many magical turns. I mean, first of all, Landrell was my portal into this,
Mm.
not into this world because I was already into yoga and things like that because I had been living in California. I had been introduced to that, but I wasn't really listening to music that was expressing that. It was more secular music, and not that Landrell is religious, but it is like spiritual, obviously. And I had a very profound experience at a show of his. So it's like we have similar trajectories as far as entering through the Landrell musical portal.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if we could go more into your experience at Dharma Glow. You mentioned the primal movement and the henna on your face, but is there anything else you remember? Like, do you remember the performances or any specific connections besides Jar that you made there?
Oh, yes, I do. I remember there was an intuitive movement and there were headphones that were given. I think it
Yeah.
was like a silent intuitive movement.
Yes.
And it was like, I remember in that space just feeling like a bit of shame. But it was such a new experience for me because I'm like, oh my God, there's so many people around. I don't want to move. Like, people are looking at me. So, just looking back at that just makes me realize, like, how much I've grown. Because now I'm like, woo! Like,
Yeah.
but I remember that. And I specifically remember this woman that I can't think of her name at the moment. She was, it's her name Koya? Koya Webb?
Koya. Yeah, Koya Webb.
Yes, Koya. I remember just seeing her, and I believe she facilitated like a meditation, but she also came around with sound bowls, if I'm not mistaken. And I just remember it was the first time that I just cried. Like I just remember crying, and she gave me a hug. And like, you know when people like they no longer want to hug you, so they like kind of detach themselves. Well, she like just held on.
Mm.
Like she did not let go of me. And like that felt so look at the thumbs up as confirmation. That felt so good because I was this like complete stranger to this woman, but in that moment she made me feel seen. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, Koya has participated in a couple of events. And I remember that time it was in the grass around that big tree that everybody was sitting
Hmm.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super powerful. I'm glad you had that kinetic experience and were able to meet Jar and ultimately meet me through that experience and have a touch point to how you've grown in like being comfortable in your own skin. Because I would say that that's the exact opposite of how you present today, right? Like when you get on camera, you just feel, it just feels like there's no mask at all. It's just like
Mm.
you're just being fully yourself. There's like no performance. It's just, you're just communicating, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to a level of inner comfort that sounds like did not exist with your inner being when you were being guided to do this intuitive movement, right? Because you were not comfortable just to express your authentic nature.
Hmm.
And it's a journey to within, to the self, you know, to be able to just be like, yeah, this is who I am. Not, this is who I am. Hi, hi. It's like, no, this is who I am, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it is just like surrendering and allowing the divine to work through you. When you get rid of those like internal blocks and obstacles within yourself, then you just allow the divine to flow, to use you.
Yo, that's like, speaks so strongly. There's so much resonance in the work we're doing and how we view things. You know, you're doing the gloating goddess, and I'm Dharma Glow with the Glow Up. And I'm developing a program right now called Divine Vessel. And it is
Hmm.
about that. And there's these different phases, right? There's divine alignment, which is basically like the clearing and the healing work. So it's a year-long container. And
Hmm.
each quarter is a 12-week activation, right? So it's like divine alignment, where you learn how to be in alignment with like the divine stream. And you do yogic practices and healing modalities and starting to switch up your diet so that you can be like purified energetically and physically. And then the second 12 weeks is divine union, which is about learning how to manage and blend the masculine and feminine energies within yourself, you know, your yang and your yin energies, so that they're harmonious, because we need to operate in both, but at different times in our experience, like we're calling forward one aspect of our being in the other. And that we need to learn how to do that consciously, right? Like, how do we
Hmm.
flow? How do we like call forward more yang energy for this situation? Or when we need to rest and decompress, how do we relax into yin? I think people at this time probably need more guidance in that, because there's so much stimulation and hustle culture. And, you know, it's
Hmm.
like, how do we unplug and just chill?
Hmm.
Divine Vessel is the third 12 weeks, which is when you start expressing that energy coming through you. So it doesn't matter how you express it. It could be through singing or poetry or cooking or whatever you're doing, you're being a transmission vessel for that energy. And then finally, it's luminous lifestyle because now you just are like saturated in the present. So just you walking into the room, you're like holding down that vibration, and people are feeling it and being affected by it, regardless of whether you're saying anything or not. Right. So you understand that it's more the being than the doing at that point, you know?
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I think that's definitely what's needed more in this world is people understanding the energies within themselves and the harmony that's necessary internally so that naturally that harmony can flow outside of us and into regular society. And I think that's also part of the beginning of my journey was like within the military, I was so stuck in my yang energy. I was so deeply in my masculine because I had no other choice but to be. Being in my yang really caused me to just not understand who I was and not be fully rooted in my feminine. So being able to come out of that and just tap into creativity and who I was as a woman really helped me find my authenticity. So I think it's beautiful to be able to guide people through these both beautiful energies and then to help them merge it all. That's powerful.
And I was mentioning this on my last podcast, but it's so important to honor both energies and to recognize the uniqueness of what they bring because, you know, they're different polarities of the same core energy. But you were mentioning that you made those earrings and you made that necklace. And I feel like that's a large part of what the feminine does is bring the beauty and bring like the life and the radiance to things. And the military, from my perspective, I've never been in the military, but from my perspective, it's just all discipline, all order, you know, all logic. You do things without questioning them, whether you agree with them or not. It's not, well, I feel this way, so I'm going to act this way. It's like, no, because the masculine and feminine work different ways and they're both valid, right? Like integrity means different things to the masculine and feminine. So a masculine integrity is I said I was going to do something, so I do it. That's integrity in the masculine frame. And to me, the feminine form of integrity is I'm acting in integrity with how I feel.
Mm.
So if I said I was going to do this today, but then today it doesn't feel right, then I'm not going to do something that doesn't feel right. Right. And there's appropriate times to oscillate between both of those things because you can't just say, you know what, I'm not going to honor anyone else's time or energy because I don't feel like it. Like that's an extreme version of it, but knowing how to tune in to which energy is appropriate. And that's that balance between the inner masculine and inner feminine that we each have to work towards.
Absolutely.
And I love how the increase of synchronicity happened on your journey, like going to the retreat and it being Taino woods. You know, were you aware that Taino is what your people were called, or did you discover that through that process?
So I was already aware that as a Puerto Rican woman, I had a mix of Spaniard, Taino, and African. But in school, you're never taught about the Tainos. You're never really taught about like Native American history other than maybe like a small blurb of it all. So I kind of grew up my entire life never recognizing that the Native Americans and the Indigenous people were actually my people.
Mm-hmm.
So the journey was in really understanding who I was at my root. And through learning about the Tainos, I felt like, wow, I finally found my identity. Like I finally feel rooted in who I actually am because now I know who I come from. So that was a huge, huge piece in like me feeling more rooted in who I am and what I'm here for, what I'm meant to do.
If I were to say, you know, what's your dharma, what's your purpose, what would you say?
Oh my God. For one, I feel like we have many purposes.
Mm-hmm.
If I could simplify it, it's to be of service. It's to show up in service in the ways that you passionately want to show up in service through. Yeah, so for me specifically, it's encouraging, empowering, and uplifting people with my words. Like I feel like my words are it's a gift. It's what I allow the divine to speak through me. I also I give spiritual insights as well. So I do personal readings with people. So part of my purpose is just to give clarity and to give spiritual insight to people who need it. But naturally, with my content, I just kind of share the messages that come to me. I speak from my heart. That's what I do. I allow the divine to use me by speaking through my heart.
Mm.
Sometimes people need to hear a specific message, or they don't have clarity on what to do next, or maybe they just need a little bit of encouragement, because we can all use that.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, I always feel like this yearning or this like urge of like, I need to say this, like I need to get this message out. So that's just what naturally flows out of me. And I feel like our purpose is always natural to us. Like it's always something that comes very naturally to you. You don't have to find your purpose. You just have to embody who you are, and it'll just authentically flow out of you.
Ashe, I agree. I believe we all have the same purpose. It's about being a vessel of love and serving people with that love. And the uniqueness of our journeys is how we do that. And it doesn't have to be one way your whole life, it can be multiple ways. And I think the easiest way is just presence, giving your presence and your full like soul presence to someone, because a soul's presence invites a soul's presence. So
Mm.
when you show up with a certain level of presence that you've cultivated intentionally and you've done the healing work, then you're pulling their soul closer to the surface so they can entrain with that way of being. And so maybe they're not consciously living at that level of depth within themselves on a consistent basis, but when they connect with you or someone who else is living in this way, they can like feel more full. Maybe that starts the curiosity of like, how do I live like this more? And then they go on their own journey and end up in their people's woods.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think at some point within the healing journey, which is like a never ending process because we're always growing and evolving in beautiful ways.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, you feel empowered enough to start sharing what you learned on your own journey, to start sharing the things that you did to empower yourself, and to really open yourself up to your own sense of identity and authenticity. And I think that's the pivotal point of like the journey, when you start sharing it, when you're able to teach it to other people, when it becomes your offering. Yeah, when it becomes your offering.
I agree. And you also mentioned your words, not just speaking from the heart, but you said you write poetry as well.
Yeah, I do. My poetry is all about transmuting the complexities of life through self reflection. So I write a lot about painful experiences, things that I've gone through. Pain was actually what brought me to my poetry, to be honest. I had forgotten that side of myself because I was in the military. As a child, I would always write. Always, always, always. I always had a journal, and I would write all my little poems. And I remember I was part of this program. It was like a program through Yale where they pick certain children from like the New Haven public schools to create their own plays. And we had like our mentors were the Yale students, so they helped us write our play. And I just remember like I wrote two different plays, and then at the end of the program, they actually perform it, where the Yale students are the actors and they bring your entire play to life.
Mm.
So I was always naturally a writer growing up, but once I joined the military, I stopped writing because that just wasn't the field I was in. So I came back to it because of pain. After the service, I went through some deep hurt, and it was like I just wanted to transmute it through writing. So I picked up the pen again.
I love that. Have you published any of the poetry yet?
Have not yet, but that is definitely one of my goals.
Do you have a big catalog of poetry?
Honestly, I'm naturally a writer. I wake up every single morning and I write. So I have like 10 journals filled with stuff, and a lot of it is poetry. So yeah, I have a lot of poetry to choose from and to create something with. So
Mm.
Definitely stay tuned for that because I know naturally that something is going to come out of that.
Well, I would love to connect you with the team that edited my poetry books because they're poets themselves and they really got it. I handed them the whole collection because I also started writing poetry in, I think, 2019 as a way to process my pain. And I went on a 100-day writing challenge. And over that 100-day writing challenge, I was writing at least one poem every day. And at the end of the 100 days, I had 120, 130 poems. And one of the lines in the poem was From Infinity to Infinity. So that became the title of the book. And I found their ad online. They were the first thing that came up when I said poetry editing. And I just got a really good vibe when I did a discovery call with the owner. Her name is Callie. And I just sent her all my work. And I said, I know I want there to be 88 poems. So please pick the ones you think are best and put them in the order for 88.
Mm.
And the whole time I had just been writing them. I hadn't been reading them. So when I got back the collection of 88 poems that she had put together, I was able to see myself in the journey I had been on because I had never written poetry before that process. So my poems got better because I was doing it every day. The year before, I had started meditating consistently, doing Vedic meditation every day. So I was deeply rooted in it. And then in 2019, I went to a Vedic rounding meditation retreat in Morocco. So not only had I been meditating every day and I had learned Kundalini, so I was doing that, but I was also adding this practice of rounding, which is like a specific Vedic technique. So I was really deep in it. And in those spaces, you can become a vessel. And some of the poems that I received on that meditation retreat, I felt the reception of them. I was walking on the property and I was like, like, and then I was like, okay, I got to write that down. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't coming from within me, it was coming through me by that point. So when I was reading it, the collection, I could see the expansion. I was like, oh, like something got shifted here. So it gave me a level of self-awareness and respect for the journey that I didn't have without having it reflected to me like that. And if you have 10 notebooks worth of writings and poems, I just feel like a similar process could happen for you where you could just see yourself in all the dimensions. And it's just a really beautiful process. So I would love to at least send you their website and then let you decide if it's something that feels resonant.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I do have a lot already printed out and that I've kind of like organized into different sections, but I haven't taken that next step. So that would be beautiful because I feel like you mentioned, these poems, it's something that the divine shares through you. So to not share it with the rest of the world is to do a disservice, to God
Mm-hmm.
and to who we are as beings of light. Because a lot of times what we go through, what we experience, and what we channel is not for us, it's also for the collective. So to be able to really showcase what has come through my heart would be beautiful. That would be the ultimate medicine for myself and for others. And I'm sure that must have been so rewarding for you.
It is. And
Mm.
I just got the download that to bring it full circle would be to have you share some poetry at the glow up because you got
Yeah.
activated back in the day and now you can come forth and share your art,
Mm.
share your story. It could be part storytelling, part poetry vibes.
Ooh, okay. I would love that. Hold on. Now I gotta write this down. What? Okay, this is powerful. When's the glow up? I gotta put
Next
it in my
glow
calendar.
up is in Atlanta,
Okay.
October 11th,
Ooh.
2025.
Okay. Oh my God. I gotta be there. Something about October 11th sounds so. Wow, that's interesting. Okay. October 11th is a special day for me. It's my dad's birthday. Okay. I would love that. I would love that. That would be totally full circle.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the same journey like you. I went through the Londrell portal into this realm and received the inspiration to start Dharma Glow and started it. And I would always storytell and MC, as you probably remember from the event, but at the last few events, it's transitioned into more sharing art and performing and playing music and expressing and allowing myself to be the vessel. And that's really the process that I want to facilitate for everyone in the community. People come to the event and they get activated and then they start deepening into themselves. And then we help them refine that so then it can be potent. Think about how potent the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is. 16 songs that encompass this journey that is timeless. You know, like an hour's worth, compressing your whole journey and consciousness over music in an hour like thing and being like, here you go, world, take that. And something like that only becomes more powerful the more you listen to it because it's about love. Right? So it deepens your understanding of love in the most enjoyable way, because as much as you like a documentary or a self-help book, I mean, how many times are you going to read it or watch it? Maybe if you really like a self-help book, you'll read it more than once. But how many times are you going to listen to doo-wop? You know?
Day.
Right. So for me, music is the highest spiritual technology. It's like poetry, but also emotionally expressed over vibrations. Right?
Wow. I've never thought of it like that. I mean, I've always known how powerful music really is, just based off of, Lantrell's impact in my journey. But to also just recognize that it's the most impactful because it's always present. Like people always go back to that. They always hear the same song, the same frequency. Like there's a reason to continue to listen to that transmission.
Right.
So it's like it never dies. That's beautiful.
It never
Now
dies.
I'm like, dang, I gotta write some music.
Yeah. It's universal, you know? It's like you don't have to speak the language to feel the vibe. Right?
Yeah.
You could just feel the vibe and you're like, yeah, I rock with it. I like this dimension that we're in right now, you know? And it actually opens up dimensions too. Because when I first listened to Londrell, I kind of liked it, but I kind of didn't because it was so unlike everything I had heard. And I felt like the more I healed, the more I liked it. And then the first time I did mushrooms and listened to Londrell, I was like, oh, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
It makes sense now.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. I get it. Yeah. So yeah, he created that one time and my relationship to it shifted, but the music was the same. The codes were always there, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I mean, I feel like a lot has come through and we get to co-create a lot of things. That's fun.
Yes, absolutely. That's what's so beautiful about connecting with people that are on the same frequency as you. It's like naturally just like different ideas, different creations start coming in. And then you just kind of give life to it.
Ashe. All right. Well,
Excited.
I'm excited. We got some things to
I'm
plan.
like, I got to start writing now.
Yeah. You get to start writing now. Yeah. And if you're already writing poetry, then it's something like lyrics are poetry, you know?
Okay.
So it's like it's just a matter of expressing it. And when I started recording music professionally in a studio last year, I remember what one of my friends, Nina, said to me about recording. And she said, don't think about what it sounds like, think about what it feels like. So, you know, when I would go to express, like there's a song I would rap on, and it was like, now I'm blanking on the lyrics, but I could just go into the emotion of it and express it from a depth within myself without being like, am I on pitch or what? You know, I didn't think about any of that. Right. And I was just expressing in a very heartfelt way. And then when I listened to it back, I was like, man, that's me. Like, I sound like that. Okay, cool. And that level of passion is in the architecture of the music. It's in the essence of the music. So whenever people hear it, it's like outside of time and space, they're getting that transmission. And souls respond to authenticity more than anything else. So if you're being authentic, then you even get outside of the realm of judgment because you're like, that's real. It's real, you know,
Mhm.
and real recognize real.
Period. No, absolutely. I think once you get past judgment is when you step into a whole nother realm of who you truly are and allowing the divine to work through you. Because where God exists, judgment cannot. It's just a reality. And I think when
Hey,
we're focused on judgment, then we stop ourselves from allowing the divine to really flow through us, to really be used as a vessel for the divine. Music is like a beautiful way to just surrender to the flow. Honestly, I think it's that I definitely see myself connecting with music in the future. I am part of, which kind of goes back to a little bit full circle to just my journey, but being part of an indigenous community, Taino Woods, I joined the Tequinas, which is a drum circle. We're the song keepers of medicine songs. So we sing traditional Taino songs in the Arawakan language, as well as Spanish and in English, but they're songs of prayer. And through joining this drum circle is where I started finding my voice. And it became easier for me to share my expression, for me to share my poetry,
mhm.
and for me to sing. So I feel like naturally, I find that all poets, well, most poets, like Londrell, for instance, and yourself, they start with poetry and then they evolve to start creating music out of their poetry. Because that's what, to me, that's what music is. Music is poetry with sound.
100%. I agree. It's definitely been my trajectory. And just to even have more confidence in your voice and the way it expresses is, if you think about a vase, right? Like there's vases with different shapes. And if you blow wind through a vase, depending on the shape, it makes a different sound, right?
Mm,
So the inner architecture of your vase is determined by the journey of your soul. So
mm,
what you're doing when you're expressing is you're pulling wind through that channel.
mm.
So as you pull wind through the channel, it makes a completely unique sound. So if you are just committed to expressing the uniqueness of your sound, it's going to communicate something to people that's undeniable.
It's beautiful. I never thought of it like that. Thank you.
A divine vessel.
Indeed.
Well, I'm so grateful we got the opportunity to connect. There's so many inspiring parts of your story, and I feel like it reflects my own journey in so many ways and how you got activated, the increasing journeys of synchronicity, your own like prodigal return to your culture and your deepening of self and your movement into service and your ever blooming creative expression. And I'm glad to be able to have a space where you can even take that next step into your creative expression and give back to a place where you were opened up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. That would be like the full circle of it all. So that'd be such a blessing.
Mm.
I'm grateful that, and I feel honored that you even reached out to me. So I think I'm grateful because it allowed me to really go back and like I think sometimes we can get busy and pushing forward like what's our next creation? What are we working on right now? That sometimes we forget to look back and really recognize our growth and honor it. So this interview allowed me to just reflect and it's been beautiful to just go back in time and see like wow, there's been a lot of growth and it's all coming back full circle because it always does.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable. And I bless your journey. I honor your journey. I'm glad to have reconnected and to be planning to co create. And I think that the more we as a community come together, it's an exponential expression of the energy. It's not like times two, it's squared. So I'm very excited about the time that we're in. And I know a lot of people feel like doom and gloom. I don't. I feel like this is the best time to be alive ever. And there is a death happening in the world, like
Mm,
the old way is dying. But the opposite, like life, doesn't have an opposite. Like death and birth are both contained within the framework of life. So now that there's this death happening, something new is being birthed. And we are the architects of that new world.
Absolutely. Building a new world and getting comfortable with the duality of it all, seeing the beauty of both the heaviness and the lightness, the joy and the grief, because they're natural expressions of what we go through within this human vessel. It all comes down to love at the end of the day. Both teach us love. We cannot have one with the, yeah, we cannot have without the other. So as long as we remain in gratitude, we'll create an entirely different world where it's easier to learn the teachings that this experience is guiding us through.
Ashe. Thank you, sister. I appreciate your presence.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Would you like to tell people how they can connect with you in case they feel inspired to work with you or just tap in a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. So my Instagram handle is Muse the Poetess. I also have, in my bio is my Gloating Goddess page, which is my business page, all focused on health and wellness, where I also offer herbal teas. I have more offerings coming soon, but I do give personal readings as well. And I have a YouTube called Gloating Insight, where I share intuitive messages, just like I share on my Instagram. So if you feel called, give me a follow, and hopefully you receive a message that you need to hear.
Ashe. We'll share those links in the show notes. Thank you for being here, and we'll see y'all next time, fam. Peace.
Thank you for having me.